Okay, we'll get started. It's going to be great. It's measurement. It's everyone's favorite topic. It's my favorite topic. So let's do it. So, welcome, Deirdre. This is our twice yearly Beet Retreat Fireside. We've done a few. So, welcome back. How you doing?
Thank you for having me back. I'm good. This is the first time, I've been here a couple of times now, but the first time my face has been quite that large and awkward on a screen. So we got through that part.
So, quickly, tell us what you do at Nielsen, just for those who don't know.
I run cross-media product sales, so I'm responsible for all of our measurement across platforms.
And just quickly, how's it working out with the new private equity guys? Are they treating everybody nicely? It's all good?
Yeah, Julie asked me this at lunch, and I was surprised she was one of the first to ask. It's an exciting time. I've been at Nielsen for 11 years. I joined when we actually came off our last in and out of being private and public. So we had just gone public after being owned by VNU. So this is my first go round on this. And it's both exciting and, it feels different too, right? You feel like a lot is about to happen in a really good way. Being public is hard. It's hard to be chasing earnings every 3 months. And that handcuffs you a little bit when the market expects certain things. And we now have more degrees of freedom to execute on our Nielsen One strategy, which I think is really good, both for us and for all of our partners in this room. So a good thing, but also a really important moment, right? It's a big moment of change, both in that we're about to release Nielsen One Ads just next month. And it's this new chapter of ownership. So it's been an exciting time.
My friends at Twitter tell me that being public and then going private can be really hard, but
I'd say that we are faring really, really well.
Yes, it's all relative.
And I don't mean to joke. I was talking to Julie about this week at lunch as well. This week has felt horrible with the elections, with all of the layoffs across so many parts of the economy, and the discussion earlier around just food prices, right? And war, like it feels bad. So I don't mean to make light of that, nor do I mean to be too glib about where Nielsen is. I think we're in really sobering times.
Yeah, I think everybody here has been challenged over the last few years, and this year especially. Let's talk about TV. What the hell are we actually trying to measure? So there's a lot of talk about cross-platform measurement, cross-media measurement, and so on and so forth. I'm not even sure we know that TV now includes multiple different bits. Do you think we need to redefine TV in order to make sense of measurement?
Well, I think the best thing we could do is to start calling it telly, like Nick and Justin, if we had good accents. I enjoyed that. Look, I think we already have. We've spent the last day or so talking about how the definition of television has changed. And at Nielsen, and I think for all of us, it starts with the consumer and what do we all do when we're actually just people consuming media. And we've changed. When we sit down to watch television, we're not saying, oh, I'm going to watch a little linear, I'm going to watch a little streaming or a little CTV. We're just watching television. So absolutely, it's changed. Now, of course, that's the consumer point of view, and then that creates the mandate for us to then figure out how we do that across all of our own jargon, which we've spent the last day talking about. So yes, it's changed because the consumer's changed, and our mandate is to be able to measure as seamlessly across those things as the consumer moves across them as they consume entertainment. The other thing I think that's important that we talked about is, what is premium? And Ashley said it well, with the adage, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think as we think about television and what it is and what counts, really people vote with their most precious asset, which is time. Like what hasn't changed as fragmentation has happened and all that is like, there's not any more people and there's no more minutes in a day. So we're all voting with is what we spend time on. So I think beauty really is in the eye of the beholder. And that I think is the consumer point of view that we all need to serve and be able to understand where they're voting with that time and where they're spending it. But our jargon comes in again because we also need to and can understand, hey, what's professionally produced, what's user generated, and what does that mean for how and when it's consumed and by whom? And what does that mean for the right creative type or what creatives are effective or what's safe for a brand? Like all those things matter for sure. But if you just start with the consumer, it's television, right? And they decide where they vote.
Is the reality today, though, that we've connected TVs to the internet and we have a whole bunch of stuff comes down those pipes onto TVs? we've got set-top boxes, we've got over-the-air, we've got a lot of different stuff coming into televisions. It is a reality that if we're trying to provide great national TV measurement, covering all of it, that some bits are much harder to measure than others.
I liked your question until you said in trying to measure national television.
If you want to get a sense of a holistic sense.
It is hard to measure holistically. It is hard to measure holistically for sure. And when I step back and think about what we ought to be measuring, we gotta measure what matters, and that doesn't matter what industry you're in. You have to measure to the things that matter to your consumer and ultimately to drive your business. And for me, it does start with, first of all, it starts with coverage. So you do need to be able to measure all of the bits that I just said count. And the way you need to do that is you need big data, which, by the way, I tend to always, at some point in the Beet Retreat, have to correct the record. Nielsen has more big data than anybody else out there. So yes, but we also have the only representative panel out there. And I really believe you need both of those things to measure comprehensively in this world of all this fragmentation. You also need to be able to measure all the walled gardens, which, I'm so glad to, or I don't even know if we want to call them that, but we need to bring into this conversation Google and TikTok and Amazon and Apple and the other part of the equation, because absent that, we're not looking at the full picture, nor are we measuring it. And with Nielsen One, we will be, as well as things that have been around a very long time, like out of home, over the air, broadband. Like, we can't forget the pieces that have been around a while, that they're no less sexy. They still matter a whole lot, and you have to measure them too. So when I think about, is it hard to measure all of that? Yeah, it really is. And what we're doing with Nielsen One as we release that is bringing all of that together and providing consistent, comparable measurement across that whole ecosystem. And then the last thing I'll say is we've spent so much time talking about ads, which are really important, but people don't come for the ads for the most part. They come for the content. So you have to measure the ads and the content across all of these things so that you can not only reach the consumer with the right ad, but also so that content creators and distributors can figure out where they want to put their stuff, what they ought to be willing to pay. So you need to do both sides of that coin across all those different touch points. And yeah, it's a hell of a task.
There's a lot of talk, obviously, about how the base units of measurement, whether we're measuring people, devices, consumption in households, just the primary set, impressions, all of the above, and then we're layering on advanced audiences and other things. Do we as an industry need to have a bit of a rethink about the base units that we want to standardize on and agree are the things we're trying to measure?
I think we've done that, and we've talked a lot about it here. I think, first of all, you have to start with the goal, right? So in any given campaign, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And what does that mean about what you ultimately want to be able to measure? Should always be the starting point. But if you back away from that and say, and what I believe, and I think we've heard a lot in this discussion during this retreat as well, is you need some sort of common underpinning, like a common yardstick, so that you can look across different media touch points and create that comparability and consistency across. And then upon that, build, right? So after you have that basis, you can, earlier today, we talked about how you need that reach understanding and those common definition of impressions so that you can do attribution, or you can figure out attention or brand safety or any of those things, build on top of. But in terms of what we're trying to understand, I go back to, we're trying to understand people, we're trying to understand how they spent their time, and we're trying to do it in a way that's consistent across screens and media types and platforms so that we can best serve the consumer. You can best maximize ad spend and get the best effectiveness. So I think that always will be the goal. It's just the fragmentation of how people consume the media have made it imperative to reestablish that common ground across.
So you're going to be measuring Netflix, I think.
We are.
And streaming measurement has obviously been a big theme. Tell us a little bit about some of the complexities and opportunities presented by streaming. I mean, streaming is what, a third of viewing or something like that, and is growing pretty steadily. That's going to present both some really exciting opportunities, but it's a very fragmented space. There's some big things and a lot of small things. From a measurement point of view, how do you deal with that?
So I love the fact fiction with the 35% cited. We didn't get the citation, but that's Nielsen's measurement of streaming content consumption, and it has been growing and growing and growing. So absolutely see that. when we step back and think about measuring it, you have to think about both the measurement of the content and then, of course, the ads served within. And we've touched on a lot of the challenges in doing it. So one piece is on the ad front. We've worked extensively across partners like Netflix, who we are their measurement partner and will have always on measurement for Netflix. But we've worked with Netflix and YouTube and Roku and Samsung and lots of others to enable measurement of those platforms. And in fact, we are capable of measuring more than 90% of digital video ads in the ecosystem. That's not to say we do, because people have to say, oh yeah, I want Nielsen measurement on this campaign, but we can do it. And that is a huge undertaking and something that is really important. We'll continue to expand that and make sure that we get as close to 100 as we absolutely can. And then on the content side, it gets even tougher. You and I talked about this a bit yesterday, but there's a lot of talk about using big data to measure, and that's great. Except, guys, set-top box data and ACR data does not have streaming in it. So you need to think about how are you going to get that. And the way we're tackling that at Nielsen is twofold. One is we have integrations directly where we can with partners, because we know that the best census data resides with the actual distributor of the content. That said, we've also heard a lot of talk today about how people view that as crown jewels and assets, as well as a lot of concerns and privacy lawyers and not being able to just disseminate that stuff willy-nilly throughout. So getting census level stuff is a challenge. The other piece we have is our streaming meter, where we actually can we can measure consumption of streaming via our panels. Of course, panel solution only for streaming won't work in a place where viewing is particularly fragmented. So both are very important. But this goes back to that like big screen horror show where I said that this is a team sport. Like we can't do it alone at the same time as any one streaming platform can't really compete alone. So we have to find a way to bring it all together so that we can measure robustly across. And that's the strategy we're taking.
Final question then. I think we all know that measurement is making great strides. There's a lot of change happening. And there are people I talk to. We had a very interesting presentation at SIM where it was suggested that if we get measurement right, we can take TV from $65 billion to $100 billion. Do you think that's realistic? I mean, to see that kind of growth, but also that measurement can play that critical role?
I love this question, and I'm going to start by seeming to not answer it, but I actually am. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why am I doing this with my life? Like, does this matter? Is this where I actually want to spend my time? And the way that I've actually found in my 11 years at Nielsen that this does matter is I think that transparency and the free flow of information is actually a good thing for the world. And back when Nielsen owned what we called Buy and then called Connect, but what people bought and sold, that actually helped grow countries, like developing markets. When you provide and shine a light on what's happening there, you can encourage investment. And I think the same thing is true of media. As we create transparency and fairness and comparability, I think measurement opens up the movement of money, which not only will facilitate movement across platforms, but I think it will grow the pie, because there are other parts of marketing budgets that don't have that same ability to really show, hey, did this work? Was this a good use of my money? So as we provide robust, comparable, accurate measurement, I believe we'll just pull more money into advertising from other parts of marketing. So absolutely, I believe it grows. And just to get back on my mission, I believe that's a good thing. I think as we measure ads and as we help figure out content that delights people, we're creating that flow of information. And we're also helping make that flow of information free to a large extent, because the ads sort of support the internet, right? And the internet and the flow of information is a very good thing. So I think it's a really important role. That's at least how I justify my career in my life.
Deirdre, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.